Now, he may have resigned in a shock TV interview, but the story isn't over for the former Spanish FA president, Luis Rubiales. Having repeatedly said he wouldn't stand down over that kiss on Jenni Hermoso, Rubiales announced last night he's quitting, saying he couldn't continue his work. Rubiales is now waiting for the decision of a Spanish High Court judge in relation to a legal complaint filed by Hermoso. An investigation could then be started, which may even lead to a trial. The Spanish FA's acting president says there's been enormous damage done to Spanish football. Well, Rubiales also claims that he doesn't want to detract from the country's target of hosting the 2030 Men's World Cup. Well, joining us now is the Women's Sports Alliance founder and managing director, Jordan Gard. Good afternoon to you, Jordan. Are you well?
I'm very good, Nikki. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Just talk us through this. How much damage do you think this situation has done to the sport?
Yeah, I actually don't think it's done any damage to the sport as a whole, but what it has done is highlight some of the challenges and inequalities that still exist in women's football. I think it took Luis Rubiales 22 days to resign after telling the world that he wasn't going to resign. That was too long for me. And it has damaged the Spanish FA's reputation, in my opinion. And I think that's the main point. They should have pushed through a resignation quicker. Action should have been taken quicker. And it's very clear that if the wrong people are in charge, it can be damaging for the health of our female athletes and also those involved within that governing body as a whole, but not necessarily the sport in general.
Jordan, did he have to resign? Had he come out and apologised immediately, would that have been the end of this, do you feel?
Perhaps, yes. But in that case, I don't know. I think what's happened at the Spanish FA, we've seen the tip of the iceberg. There's obviously been a lot that's been going on behind the scenes prior to the World Cup, with 15 female players saying that they do not wish to be called up for selection for the World Cup and for any international duties moving forwards. If he had apologised, I think perhaps everything might have been brushed under the carpet even more. So even though it's not a great thing what has happened, what it has done is bring to light some of the challenges that have been previously existing within the organisation. If he had apologised, perhaps, yes, that would have nipped it in the bud. But his reaction to what happened said quite a lot for me about his attitude towards female athletes and those players that he is supposed to be protecting and looking after.
Yeah, Jordan, it's interesting, isn't it, that he sort of brought his daughters into this, hasn't he? And the quotes that come out of it, I just want to quote him correctly, said they wanted him to focus on your dignity rather than risk causing further damage to people you love and the sport you love and that you built. What did you make of the fact that he even mentioned his daughters in this interview?
It is so frustrating. Piers Morgan did the same thing. Simon Jordan did the same thing when talking about this real complex issue. All three of them have brought up the fact that they have daughters. Now, for me, you don't need to have daughters to credibilise your support of women's rights. And I think that is a really important point. The fact that he has a daughter and he's brought up this several times suggests that he's trying to lean on something, clutching at straws to credibilise again how he supports the women of the FA Federation. For me, that shouldn't come into question whatsoever. It's highly frustrating. It's been prior to this issue, it's been a trend that has been happening. People say we support women's sport, and I've got daughters, and it's that is the reason. And it comes across as a bit of a scapegoat, and I don't quite like it. And I wish for that to stop moving forwards with any of these further discussions that we have.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are certain discussions going on out there. Everyone's wanting to talk about this. Is there any justification at all, do you see, for his actions? Was it an overzealous moment that just got out of hand? Or do you see this utterly different to that?
It's utterly different to that. Obviously, he was excited. Obviously, emotions were running high. The Spanish women's team had just won the World Cup, which, by the way, has just been overshadowed by this constant discussion of these two men in question. But it was different, and also I said it before, this is obviously the tip of the iceberg. There are more things happening behind the scenes that we're not aware of. And I really wish for this to be the catalyst in bringing all of that to light. And for me, if Rubiales can act that way on national television, on global television, in front of a global audience, what is happening behind the scenes? And that might be a bit of a stretch, and that's definitely not any allegations there. But we need to look very carefully into the situation, what has happened previously, and why he thinks it's appropriate to act that way on a global stage.
Jordan, we are running out of time. We've got about 30 seconds left. What do you feel can be learnt in this country from events that happened in Spain?
I think we need to put the right people in charge. It's very clear that when the wrong people are in charge, these things can happen, and we put our female athletes at risk. We need to put the right people in charge so that our female athletes are protected.
Jordan, it's been really good to get your thoughts on this. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.